Step 29 breaks down expenses and costs by activities. When you entered figures to the trial balance, you entered them by nominal code. But if you are preparing activity accounts, you will need to analyse those costs over activities undertaken by the charity. If you are not preparing activity accounts, you should bypass this step. If you are preparing activity accounts, either because you have voluntarily chosen to prepare activity accounts or because you must prepare activity accounts because you are subject to a statutory charities audit, you are a large charity under the SORP, then you should use this step. This is perhaps the most complicated part of the preparing of the accounts, and so you should read the instructions fairly carefully. There are fairly detailed instructions there showing what is done in this step and how to do it. But essentially, in this example here, we have £9,000 of expenses that have been entered to the trial balance that haven't yet been analysed over activities. In this section here, it indicates what categories of expenditure they relate to. In this section, there is 6,000 still to analyse. That's on expenditure on charitable activities. On all these items, there is no further expenses to analyse. But on the analysis of other expenditure, there is still 1,000 to analyse. And on grants, there is still 2,000 to analyse. Those are figures entered the trial balance that haven't been analysed. So you click on the areas that still require analysis. Let's go to the expenditure on charitable activities. The particular columns that are available in this analysis will vary depending on the category of the accounts that you're in. In this area, we are talking about expenditure on charitable activities directly attributed to charitable activities. Let's say £2,000 relates to the heading that you create in step 26 of the activity of theatre and ticket sales, primary purpose trading. Let's say £1,000 applies to your costs of providing services to beneficiaries. So £1,000 of the wages relates to that activity. Let's say £3,000 relates to the employees' costs involved in making grants to charities, to organisations, to individuals. This is the employees' costs of managing and administering those grants. Once you've analysed those over the particular activities, you will see that the total still to be analysed has reduced to nil. So you've analysed all the items that were in the trial balance relating to that particular type of transaction. And that's the total you've analysed. That total equals nil, so you've fully analysed this section. Once you've analysed that, you go back to the summary of activity analysis, look again, see what else there is to analyse. You've got this to analyse, other expenditure. This is expenditure unrelated to fundraising or charitable activities. We've got £1,000 that is in the trial balance that was spent on the costs of fluffy toys. So let's analyse those. Say it's the purchases of fluffy toys. We've now analysed that section completely. So let's go back to the summary analysis. We've now got £5,000 of grants to allocate. Now this has two categories in it. One is the items that were entered in the trial balance of £2,000 against direct grant-making costs. You want to analyse that over the particular activity. So although there were grants is not an activity directly in itself. You want to analyse that to the particular charitable activity that's involved. Let's say £2,000 of grants was made to providing services to beneficiaries. Earlier, we allocated £3,000 of employees' expenses to the costs of grants. Now we want to allocate those overheads. There are £3,000 of overheads in total. We want to analyse those over other charitable activities. It's unlikely to be to do with theatre ticket sales, because that's not a grant-making operation. It might be providing services to beneficiaries, or it might be another charitable activity that we haven't yet defined, but if you went back to step 26, you could put it into that heading. Now we've analysed everything in that area, and we can go back to the summary analysis, and we see that in the summary analysis, there's still £1,000 to analyse. What haven't we analysed? There's £1,000 there. We've still not fully analysed that. Yes, I made a mistake there. We should have put £3,000 into there, because 3,000 was the amount originally analysed to grant overheads. Now I have finished, and I have got 0 there. I made a mistake. You should watch out for that. Now go back to this, and you see that my total still to be analysed is 0. I've completed the analysis. Now before we finish the step, let's just look at what that does to the accounts. In the accounts, we now have charitable expenditure by activity. We have £2,000 of direct costs have gone against theatre and ticket sales. We've got £1,000 providing services to beneficiaries. And we've got charitable costs by activity summarised there. So all those figures are carried to the details of the accounts. The £3,000 of overheads that we put relating to grant making have appeared there. So everything that we put into the analysis in step 29 is now correctly showing in the accounts. So we can now go to the end of step 29 and indicate at the end there that we have completed this step by entering Y in the drop-down box. That concludes this step.